Hi, I'm Joanne Woodsum, a solo practitioner specializing in commercial leasing law. I've been a lawyer for a long time, and I know that there's a lot to wrap your head around when it comes to commercial leasing. The goal of my podcast, the Commercial Leasing Diva podcast, is to make your lives as commercial leasing professionals easier and more fun. In the podcast, I speak to other commercial leasing professionals who share their expertise so that we can all improve our commercial leasing game and better serve our clients. Today's guest is Felipe Gomez-Kraus. Felipe is Chief Revenue Officer and President of Raise Commercial Real Estate, a specialty boutique firm which helps tenants understand, creatively imagine, and grow their office space, both in the San Francisco Bay Area, and now they've got offices around the country. Felipe and I have known each other for quite a while. We worked on a number of deals together. He has a really interesting perspective on office and services and real estate, and I hope you enjoy today's conversation. I see you.
Goodness. I can see you too. It's been such a long time. Holy smokes.
I know.
Let me do this. I'm sitting at a table here in a conference room in an office, if you can believe it.
Unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. How are you? It's been really forever. It's great to see you.
I know. I'm doing really well. I'm still solo. I've been solo for almost 7 years now.
Amazing.
And I relocated probably since I worked with you to Reno, Nevada.
Mm-hmm. I remember right when that had happened, and your dogs were in the background, and you were like the original remote, champion.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Exactly. Actually, I've been remote for 20 years, so I can say that I've been remote for a really long time.
I love it.
Welcome everybody to the Commercial Leasing Diva podcast. My name's Joanne Woodsum. I'm a solo practitioner specializing in commercial real estate. I'm licensed in both California and Nevada, and I'm super excited to be launching this series of podcasts focusing on commercial real estate in California. I'm speaking to a number of brokers from lots of different types of markets, as well as leasing products, by which I mean different types of real estate, office, retail, life science, etc. And today I'm super happy to welcome Felipe Gomez-Kraus, who I've worked with for a really long time, although not recently. So it's a great opportunity for us to catch up. So welcome,
Absolutely.
Felipe.
Thank you.
So Felipe is at an exciting turning point in his career because he has helped launch a new company. So Felipe, welcome, and you want to tell us about your new company?
Thank you so much, Joanne. It's great to see you. It's always great to catch up with old friends, and it feels like we've seen every version of this type of a market. So it's great to have lots to talk about today. But yeah, I mean, since the old days, we've actually started Raise Commercial Real Estate, and we wanted to really take this industry that we love and make it one that we're proud of. And in doing that, the hope was to take a truly data-driven approach in how we serve our clients. We're a full-service technology-powered brokerage firm with offices in 5 major metros and serving clients across the globe. We have not only brokerage services, but workplace solutions and project and construction management, and a proprietary technology platform that serves all of those, in addition to portfolio management, labor analytics. So we're sort of equal parts eating our own dog food around, building technology and being, one of those great startups that we've been lucky enough to serve over our lives, and building towards that institutional scale that's helping us serve clients and occupiers nationally and globally.
That sounds so exciting. So is your client base mostly on the tenant side then?
Currently it is. Yeah, we do represent some landlords, in the various metros that we're in. But we had to start with what we were always most passionate about. And as you know, I've been lucky enough to serve occupiers' needs for my whole career, from high growth technology companies to very well established financial services firms, insurance firms, publicly traded companies, and have always just been so passionate about the ways that we can improve that experience on all ends, right? And so that was what led us to this. It was taking the best of being able to deliver excellent service, but also create a superpower via technology, and use that to build the future for our clients and our industry. So we focus on occupiers, and within that, really, it is agnostic to vertical, and are currently engaged with clients from the very early stage all the way up to large publicly traded companies.
That sounds so exciting. And it sounds like you're really filling a niche, because I often feel bad. The way it works in commercial leasing, and I know it's true for often the case for brokers too, is you're presented with a lease, or in your case, you're presented with, please find us a location, and then you help negotiate the lease. But then you're kind of, the client disappears, and you worry. At least I worry. I worry, like, do they know what's happening when the build out is occurring? Do they understand how to get the lease admin part going? And so it sounds like your company is really working to meet those sort of beginning to end of lease needs that tenants have, but a lot of times clients don't understand that they have.
That's actually a great point. There's so much of our industry that our clients would come to, and everywhere else in the world, they're used to using technology to take large data sets and have the ability to make better, stronger, faster decisions through that. And if you've been through Zillow or Airbnb or DoorDash or any of these experiences where you're able to make meaningful decisions based on taking large data sets and having what was right for you served in real time. That's only a snippet, however, of the whole process. And so at Raise, we have really established workplace-led brokerage, where you mentioned people would say, we need to go find a space. Our responsibility is to begin with the why, right? Especially in an environment like we're in right now. What does the built environment mean, right, in terms of how this company expresses its values, its culture? What is it as a tool for retention, motivation? How does it foster collaboration? And then once you've done that with an incredible sort of workplace bent, do you understand what the physical footprint, location, building type amenities should be? You get into the build out, and then at every one of those stages previously, the client would have an interaction, and then the relationship ends. If you're capturing all of those with our technology platform, and that then turns into the same tool through which our clients are able to manage their portfolio, understand what their spend is, their critical dates, utilization, and occupancy, then you're actually creating the first of its kind end-to-end solution. So it is the taking so much of that learning over the years of the way that brokers would set themselves a calendar reminder sometime down the road and say, I think there's an expansion option that's going to be due, so I should reach out, right? There are so many better ways for us to take technology and have it really create the superpower for people who care about delivering service.
And it strikes me that what I'm hearing too is a real sort of seismic shift in the way occupiers are using office space. Back in the day, certainly when I started, it was, you're talking about all this data and all this technology. I think in the past, our perception was that was not necessary.
Right.
It was like, well, I'm a company, I'm a law firm, I have 100 employees, and so that's what I need. I anticipate growing with 1 or 2 people over the course of 10 years. It was just, there was a lot less data, so to speak.
Yeah.
And, the build out was perimeter offices, support staff in the middle, like there was not all this variation. Yep. And what we've seen is this seismic shift with, beginning in the .coms and in the whatever that was, through the high techs that we have right now, where their way they use space is really different. And pre-pandemic, of course, what we saw was this intense pressure of density. Yeah. We need to cram as many bodies in because we really believe that, people in space sparks creativity and it's good for morale, blah, blah, blah. Now we've got this new factor of how do we deal with remote work? Yeah. Many companies are like, I want to meet my employees' desire to have flexibility and not work in the office. But then we have to go back to, well, how does that affect our office footprint? How does that affect our the amount we want to spend on lease space? How does that affect the markets we want to be in?
Yeah. that is the ever evolving sort of equation that we're in, because what you described in the early days, or, it has always adapted. And I think technology in the workplace has caused a meaningful amount of those changes over time, but they were much slower to take place. You
Right.
mentioned a law firm. If you don't have to have a law library on site, then
Right.
imagine the footprint that takes. And you extrapolate those
Right.
little things over time where there were technology impacts, right?
Right.
The
Even
fact
the
is,
amount of
there's
support
just-
staff.
Well, of
Back in the
course.
day, there would be one secretary, one or two attorneys.
Right.
Now, I mean, it's fortunately been a while since I've worked at an actual law firm, but it got to the point 5 or 6 attorneys per one secretary, and because all of us workers now are expected to be proficient in technology, able to do our own word processing, able to do basic data entry like our time, build time. And so even that has changed, where the support staff is, you just don't need as much because some of it's been replaced by technology.
But I mean, you're completely right. What that speaks to is actually maximizing resources, right? It is taking a very thoughtful view and asking why around everything. Why is the ratio this way?
Right.
And the ratio used to be, as you said, a number of square feet per person with whatever the comfort level was of that company. But the baseline for that equation was everybody's coming in.
Yeah.
So now that the foundation of that equation is no longer the same, because the foundation has shifted to people value their flexibility. They can be as productive as they would on site if they're allowed to work from other locations, and it's not a zero-sum game, right? I mean, hybrid is going to be a different model for everybody. And I think that you couple that acceptance of the fact that hybrid is here to stay, which largely it is, with the question, why do people come to the office when they come to the office? Should it even be called an office? How does it serve their needs? And that has actually been one of the most interesting spaces for us to work in, because you have to be able to first diagnose a company's values. What are their driving forces in terms of why they would or would not want to have people come together? And if you can distill those beliefs, you can overlay a strategy with that for how the physical environment complements it. And I still believe we're in the very early days of this.
Right.
You and I, we're connected on LinkedIn, and we see the very polarizing arguments about, remote forever, and that is the one truth. And then there are the other side where it's, default together 5 days a week. And the truth is, neither of them are right for everybody. Neither of them are going to be right in perpetuity. And it's really going to come down to how can we empower occupiers at every stage to figure out what's right for them.
Right.
So it's been certainly a wild ride. I mean, we talk about how we've been able to help clients from the beginning of the pandemic, which is what started this seismic shift. It was so much based around the health and safety concerns.
Right.
But the adoption of remote work and flexible work that came as a result of that initial seismic shift is where the quagmire has lived, right? It is where people are finding a much more difficult voice for their own companies, because it no longer is a sort of black and white health and safety. We can have extrinsic guidelines tell us what we can and can't do. This now has to become the job of incredible people that we're lucky to serve, these workplace leaders and heads of real estate and facilities that are now being asked to compile both qualitative and quantitative data and come up with a solution for real world brick and mortar. So it's been really a very interesting time for us, and building tools that complement how we serve them has been, it's our life's work. We're having a great time.
Well, sometime I'd have to have a whole other conversation about how you collect that data from and how you interact with workplace leaders. But to get back to sort of commercial leasing and letters of intent approach, which I would think of as a more holistic approach, is it affecting the way you're approaching letters of intent and the way you're looking to get space for your clients?
So, I'm lucky enough to work across the country representing, as I said, clients of all sorts of different sizes and with needs that vary based on that same new equation. And I think that what is true today is that the leverage discussion has shifted, right? The flight to quality has occurred. There is a general acceptance that in order to make a physical environment attractive for your employees as a pull, instead of the stick mandate to bring people back, it has to be of the highest quality in a location that works for public transit and the like. So that has caused a shift in how we talk to landlords. Certainly, the types of concessions and packages that you're able to achieve on behalf of your clients is, I think much more varied and rich than it would have been in the run up, call it 2015 to 2019, right?
Which was pretty much a landlord happy dance.
Right. But I also want to qualify that with the fact that it isn't just a time to trample on landlords, right? Because the partnership that you create, if you're doing it right, it allows for the goals of each party to be achieved. And so the flight to quality has certainly occurred, which also means that the landlords, that institutional and individual landlords that are lucky enough to be owners of real estate in either those submarkets or that quality of asset, it's still very much a landlord's market, because what most of these markets were much more spread out geographically as vacancies got very, very low in the higher quality areas. Many more landlords had a chance at the business. Now that funnel has also been impacted, right? It is not that there are as many tenants looking for as much square footage. However, those that are committed to the built environment are by and large looking for a higher quality space. What does that mean for us, right? It means that we have the opportunity to bring some flexibility. Certainly in a macroeconomic environment like this one, many clients are looking to make shorter term decisions.
Right. I was going to say, so looking for shorter terms an exit strategy that is not, an arm and a leg.
Well, I think shorter term exit strategy and expansion, right? Because in low vacancy markets, a path to expansion in a building, as the economic machine begins to turn back on, and even if utilization is at 55, 60% today, if a company believes that they want to have their people on site for several days of the week, and that's going to continue to grow, they want to have the exit strategy, but they also want to have the expansion strategy.
Right.
I heard a great, one of our partners here used a term that a church is built for Sundays, right? The building is still there, even though it's underutilized potentially for a meaningful amount of time. And so if a company believes that they want to have an excellent space for 1 to 2 days a week, they're still going to require a footprint to be committed to. So shorter terms, exit and expansion strategies, absolutely. That's on the one side. On the other side, there continues to be a meaningful amount of very high quality second generation spaces that have been put on the market, on the sublease market. Companies today more than ever are right sizing their headcount. They're using our technology and services to manage their portfolios and understand where they have opportunities, right? To either shed some space or grow into additional opportunities. And so I think that's a much more active pursuit now, is really understanding how is the space behaving. Once we've made that agreement, how is the space behaving and how will that inform our decision in the next 1, 3, 5 years? So those sublease spaces, I think they provide an opportunity for lower CapEx, generally shorter terms if you're using the remaining balance, but they also bring with them the risks of who is the sub landlord, how do you have the certainty in this economic market that company is the right bedfellow for you. And so from an LOI standpoint, oftentimes what we're doing is approaching the landlords for a direct basis to either assign the lease, to take what we like most about the lease and then maybe make some direct additions to it. And so really flexibility.
Are you doing much with non-disturbance? Are you doing much with non-disturbance with master landlords? Because I'm still seeing master landlords extremely reluctant to give a non-disturbance agreement, by which I mean that if for some reason the middle tenant there, the sub landlord, were to go sideways, master landlord rightly exercises its remedies and terminates that lease, subtenant is out in the cold. The way most landlord consents are written basically says I, landlord, can decide at the time that I terminate my tenant whether I keep you on or not, subtenant. And that is a very uncertain level of risk for many subtenants that makes subleases not very appealing. So if you could get the landlord to agree right up front, hey, if anything goes wrong with my tenant, I'll keep you on, subtenant, on the terms of your sublease. But like I said, I'm seeing master landlords really resist, even in San Francisco, where, well, obviously a lot of sublease space on the market. And I'm curious what you're seeing, because presumably that's something you have to explain to your clients. Like if you're the subtenant, this is your big, big risk.
It absolutely is something that we will always ask for, always fight for. And advocacy really stems from being able to show a landlord, if this plays out in the next several years, what the trend is for available subleases that are going to be competing with this space. What does your comp set look like? What does the tenancy in the market for, net absorption look like? And how would that, your space being empty versus not so, right? Because the risk to the landlord is that they feel emboldened enough, right, to go not allow for that in-place agreement to continue. But the bigger risk is the market will continue to have a meaningful amount of vacancy. It took us, the better part of 8 years to get from 20% vacancy down to 3% vacancy, right?
After the big recession, yeah.
Correct. And so the ability to really explain that position of and advocate on our client's behalf of why the stability that our client represents in being there should be recognized.
Right.
We've had some success with it, to be honest with you, and it really comes down to that sort of the full contact discussion of advocating for who our client is, advocating for the partnership that you can create that becomes longer term, even if you are starting by just taking a sublease, right? And hopefully that presents enough of an attractive output for landlords who are seeing not only vacancy in their own assets, but in the neighborhood, right? And knowing that all of that will have to be uptaken before, this empty space would take place. So, that and Prop 13, I mean, these are things that we would not have had success with, period, previously.
Right.
But now a complete negotiation absolutely has to have a full discussion on them. It doesn't mean that you're going to be successful every time. However, it's a pawn on the table in terms of the horse trading that is much more prevalent today.
Right. So it sounds like when you're talking to clients, really thinking about the way space is used. And we talked a little bit about law firms, and just as an example of a sort of a conservative footprint, how even that's changing now that we don't have to have real physical books anymore. So you don't have to have a giant part of one of your floor plates devoted to the law library. But what are you seeing in terms of trends in the way that the clients want to use the space? I mean, back in like I said, pre-pandemic, cram as many people in, but there would be some lush things in the high tech, commercial kitchens where food is available all the time by professional people preparing it. And, maybe a place to play pool or whatever. So are there particular things that, like, how are you getting people to go back to the office? This is like the big thing that everyone talks about. Like, how do we make the office where people want to go again?
Yeah, Joanne, it's a great question, and there isn't a one size fits all, and I know that that's a sort of a trite answer, but I will say this: the trends that we see are certainly around a high quality space that's easy to get to. Right? Let's make that sort of the table stakes.
Right.
From there, it really does vary. The one thing that is true is that density of desks packed in at 125 square feet per person is gone and is very likely not coming back. Trends around.
Frankly, I don't know how anyone tolerates. I would go visit my clients, and I would go to the legal department. 80,000 square foot floor plate. Yeah. And the legal department was 5 long benches with 10 people at the bench. I'm like, how do you even function? I don't know.
And think about the in a legal department, the privacy concerns and the like with that. I mean, it's just, I couldn't agree with you more. I'll tell you what, when you think about whether the density is 125 square feet per person or 250 square feet per person, the things that matter are how that individual's experience is impacted by the way that they're going to use the space. So today, it is very likely that more than 50, 60, 70% of the meetings that occur from 2 to 10 people are going to have some element of hybrid. Some of the people in that meeting are going to be on site, and some of them are going to be remote.
Right.
And for that to work, technology has to be as much in the forefront as anything else, right? There cannot be a limiting factor. The next thing that has become a real challenge that several companies are getting ahead of is the number of meetings that would have previously happened in person that are just one-to-one Zoom or video conference meetings. The phone booths, that was already happening in 2018 and 19, but again, now table stakes, the ratio of seat to phone booth. And I've been lucky enough to be in offices of Fortune 100 companies in various metros, and the workplace leaders have all said that the lead times for ordering phone booths are longer than ever, because as this return is happening, it's one of the biggest pieces of feedback is I'm perfectly happy to come in, but if 3 or 4 of my calls require video conferencing, I need to have that separate.
Right. I can't sit at an open bench, even if there's only 2 other people at my bench. It's too disruptive to be doing these calls. I have to be in some sort of encapsulated space.
That's right. And so if you're able to, as a company, address the health and safety concerns, the commute concerns, and the manner in which people are interacting both in person and hybrid, the next thing that we are hearing a lot of, and our workplace solutions team is working with hundreds of companies writing playbooks and operationalizing those playbooks. One of the things
presumably you have architects that help you with all this as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, it is creating options on floor plans and trying to impute as much flexibility into those floor plans as possible. Because as I said, we're not done. This is going to continue to change over time. Even in our own offices, we've changed the ratio of desks based on our utilization data, right? So we're looking at badge data. We're looking with partners like Envoy, for example. We're able to gather, with flex providers, for example, because one of the things that I'd love to talk about as well is the percentage of exposure of a total portfolio that many companies are seeing of flex versus traditional leasing, because there's a tidal shift there. It's also a place where you can get so much data around who's coming, when are they coming, and how do we build for that. So if you've got that first part answered and you've got a data-driven approach to figuring what you do in the space, the last piece that has been fascinating is what is the programming? And by programming I mean, are there events, guest speakers? Are there happy hours? Is there it's not what we used to know as the amenity package of chair massages and laundry necessarily, but rather, how are you bringing people together with thoughtful programming that's done consistently? So it's not just one, hey, we're back to work party, but rather creating the muscle memory and bringing programming into place that fosters community, it fosters people discussing whatever that programming was about, and also creates hopefully some sense of desire for there to be more of that. And so that
you see wellness is a component of that, because we were sort of on the cusp, and I think Salesforce and other companies have been on the cutting edge of this, of really integrating wellness into the workplace. But since the pandemic, I just feel like even stodgy old lawyers are suddenly going, oh, wellness, that's like mental health, physical health. This is key. And you don't just, walk in the office and that gets left behind. That's how the space is built, whether there's natural light, like all these things that were sort of percolating. But now I feel like it's becoming very significant as to whether I want to go into an office, how that space is in terms of plants and light and everything.
Joanne, you're spot on, because what has happened during again, I'll go back to the initial shock to the system so that a company went from having 3 workplaces to having 3,000 workplaces, right? And what that did was we're
going crazy. I mean, up until March 2020, we were going crazy with deals and our clients were growing And I assume and this is obviously a total sidebar, but I assume what your company has done is said, okay, we learned a lot from you guys growing so fast.
Yeah.
And we're feeling the sticker shock. And let's look back and think about, was that really a growth that, sometimes you just felt like it was the headline from the CEO's office. We're just growing, so lease more space, as opposed to more data-driven, thoughtful.
I mean, I'm proud and happy to say that over the course of my career and with our partners, there were many more times that we dissuaded growing companies from taking a bigger bite than they should have, because in retrospect, those obligations for many years at many millions of dollars were all predicated upon up and to the right hockey stick growth. And if you do truly act like it is your dollars on the line that are being spent, then you oftentimes are more apt to take a more conservative approach, knowing that there are ways that your real estate partner should be able to find flexibility for you. But I think from a health and wellness standpoint, or and a mental health standpoint, the individual's experience is more important now than ever, because you are asking that individual to choose, right? If we're talking about a return to office or a managed hybrid, which is, our definition, there's flexible hybrid and then managed hybrid. Managed hybrid, you're asking them to make a conscious choice between what they know in their home, which is their current workplace, and to come and participate, for certain times or days in yours. And with that, you have to acknowledge that there was a collective trauma that we all went through, and that there has been, subsequent to that, a change in the way that people work. And that is not only a change in the way that people work, but a change in the way that they interact with their families, the hours of the day that they're available to do certain things, results-oriented work versus FaceTime for the sake of FaceTime. And so I think that physical wellness, right? The hope that people are getting up and out and doing things together as the sort of health and safety COVID concerns have subsided. And look, they're going to rear their ugly head, and that's going to happen to us as an endemic for the rest of our lives in some form or another at this point. That's my take on it. And so the physical wellness aspect of it is very important, right? But being able to get people together and really lean into the fact that together is oftentimes better to address mental health issues that people are otherwise suffering through in isolation. There are plenty of ways that you can have programming around that, right? The number of incredible coaches and tools that you can put into place for the human experience, and all in an effort to have that person feel connected, happy, and productive, right? So you said it's a much more holistic view. And I think that the companies that will be most successful as it relates to having their values and their culture expressed in a physical place are looking at the whole human.
I think one of the interesting things, and I've read several articles about this, fallout from the pandemic is we were all Zooming from home, and we all learned a lot more about each other. We also learned a lot more about compassion because we were all suffering. So everybody's suffering was different, but there were obviously a lot of commonalities, stuck at home, can't go out, worry about loved ones living with you and the ones that aren't living with you. Caretaking, all of a sudden the person that maybe was not so involved in the caretaking in their home is now seeing their partner and what caretaking they were doing. And now, and your coworkers like, oh, I didn't realize that your aged mother lived with you. Gosh, or I didn't realize that you had 5 children under 2 or whatever, right? Gosh, that's, and I feel like it has opened up the workplace in a way that I never thought I would see in my lifetime, in a way that I think is really good, because at least I think it has given us a lot more compassion and looking at workers in the round and go, okay, when you say, if you had said 5 years ago to your boss, the commute is really hard for me, if I could work from home 1 or 2 days a week, now just shoot you down.
Yep.
But after the pandemic, they're like, oh, right, you have little Tommy and Jimmy that have to go to daycare, and the one has the little asthma that you have to take him for a special treatment.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's like, yes, we can accommodate that you need this extra flexibility, because I saw in person how great you are as a worker and how you struggle as a parent because you're trying to be a good worker.
That's right.
So at least I hope that it can have that positive impact.
Joanne, a request like that in the previous structure would have been demonized. It would have been a mark against that individual, right?
Slacker.
And where we are today is that the whole human has been thrust into the public eye with their colleagues, and their colleagues in turn have had their whole humanness delivered to their colleagues. And so, I agree with you that that's very much the case.
I'm Joanne Woodsum. Thanks for listening to the Commercial Leasing Diva podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, rate and review us, like and subscribe. You know the drill. The podcast is produced by Sandy Viteri and edited by Matthew Salanoa. Thank you so much again, and we'll see you next time.